This is Channel 2 News, coverage you can count on.
It's the old saying, you can get a grand jury to indict a ham sandwich.
It's been 5 days since federal agents carried out raids at 6 Reno locations. They ended with 9 people behind bars and at least 1 attorney preparing for trial. Where things stand in our Channel 2 News Big Story. At 5 o'clock, Dr. Robert Rand and Richard West Jr., of course, remain behind bars, but 7 other defendants are out. They were released after their first court appearance. Good evening, I'm Kristen Remington.
And I'm Landon Miller. Thank you for joining us tonight. Rand was arrested Friday in San Francisco, and of course, that was the same day that his office was raided right here in Reno. Paul Nelson talked to their attorneys today and joins us live in the newsroom with the latest. Paul?
Yeah, as you know, Landon, Dr. Rand was in court yesterday in San Francisco. That hearing was continued till Friday, when the judge will decide to detain him or release him. The timeline of what happens next depends on that decision. The U.S. Attorney's Office says Robert Rand was one of the main players in a prescription drug ring. If he's released, he'll come back to Reno for his preliminary hearing. He faces 4 counts, including one that says it was his illegitimate prescription that led to a man's death. If detained, he'll be transferred to the Washoe County Jail by the U.S. Marshals Service, likely delaying his next court appearance. Richard West Jr. was denied bail Friday and faces 6 counts for his alleged role. His preliminary hearing is a week from tomorrow.
In all honesty, that's never going to happen. We will receive notice there has been an indictment.
David Houston says the U.S. Attorney's Office will likely get a grand jury to indict West before then, hearing only evidence from federal prosecutors. If that happens, the next step will be an arraignment.
We will go to that, we will plead not guilty, and we will receive a trial date.
The U.S. Attorney says West and Rand conspired to sell oxycodone, saying West was prescribed as many as 800 pills in one day, selling them for $30 to $45 a pill. But Houston says prosecutors have presented a great deal of misinformation and speculation.
The, quote, number of pills that Mr. West would have been responsible for, the values then associated as though all of those are somehow sold on a black market. What we do know is the numbers in reference to Mr. West are wildly exaggerated.
8 of the defendants are current and former employees at Jones West Ford. 7 of them were released and face 2 charges each. Houston says the high number of defendants and attorneys makes this case even more challenging. Now, Houston says he expects this to be a lengthy process. He's still waiting on evidence and says it'll be very involved. As for Rand, his attorney, John Arascata, didn't want to talk on camera today, but says his timeline is a little less predictable since we don't know if he'll be released yet. He says his client is doing well, but anxious because of the new situation he's in. Finally, we contacted Jones West Ford today, hoping to hear from owner Richard West Sr. about this case. So far, we have not heard back from him. The dealership is open for business. Covering Crime Beat Live, Paul Nelson, Channel 2 News.
All right, thank you for all that, Paul. And pain pill abuse is a big factor behind the heroin epidemic in both Reno and Sparks. Doctors say the deadly illegal drug has rapidly gained in popularity. John Potter shows us how the prescription drug abuse problem has sparked Nevada's heroin epidemic.
Scoot back just a little bit. Perfect.
Dr. Dennis Patterson has been prescribing for 10 years now. He knows pill abuse has taken a turn for the worse.
I mean, we just hear some of the wackiest stories that you would ever imagine. Patients will falsify stories in order to get more pills, and I need to do my due diligence to verify their stories.
And when those stories are not verified, and when the patient doesn't get the pills they want, he says they use an increasingly popular alternative. One case has become all too typical.
And I declined to prescribe to them. A week or 2 later, they ended up using heroin, and as a result, infected their hip and had to have it replaced.
Kurt Fonken is a drug counselor in Sparks. The center he works in treats 500 addicts. There's the 28-year-old who switched to heroin after his doctor reduced his prescription.
Somebody offered him heroin. Eventually, it was all heroin.
He says for young people, the fear of heroin is gone.
We see kids, we hear about kids in high school that are actively using heroin. I asked a couple of clients this morning, how available is it? And they say you can get it anywhere.
Easier access and cheaper than pills means heroin overdose deaths are up.
You unfortunately lose some. Some will overdose and we won't see them again.
They are stories they have heard time and time again here since prescription pill abuse in Nevada has skyrocketed. Those hooked on pills find they can get heroin with the same high at a much cheaper cost.
$30, versus $10 for a balloon of heroin.
As for that 28-year-old man Kurt was helping,
He stayed into treatment. He's still here today. He's doing very well. He's turned his life around. He's working.
one success story in a field with too few happy endings.
I'd like to be able to work myself out of a job. I don't see that as happening.
Covering the story, John Potter, Channel 2 News.